What do you get if you cross the UNSC Hornet Recon set with the Battle for the Ark Buildable Master Chief from Mega? Aside from that, I'm Brickman117, welcome back to the channel and my latest Mega Transformed creation. For those of you that are unfamiliar with this series, it's where I take two perfectly good stock sets created by Mega Constructs and transform them into something else. And this time round we're going to have a go with the recently released UNSC Hornet Recon set. Both of these sets are still currently available and the links are in the description below if you'd like to purchase them and help support the channel. And now that that business is taken care of, we can get back to the original question. What can you create if you combine these two sets together? Well, I think you all know the answer, so I won't keep you any longer. Here it is. Okay, so that's not what you were expecting, but once this idea popped into my head, I had to show you. I just thought it was hilarious. So that's one thing you can create with these two sets. And if you get really drunk, you could create something like this, which has to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever put together. But for one reason or another, I absolutely love. It's so ridiculous and outrageous. It just makes me laugh every time I look at it. But in all seriousness, the reason I wanted to show you guys these two creations was I get so many comments on my videos stating people wish that they could build like I do, but they don't have the parts or they think they don't have the skill. And these are just examples of you don't need bucket loads of parts. These are just two sets. I've used nothing other than the parts in these two sets that you saw at the beginning of the video. And they don't have to be really complex creations. These two took me 5-10 minutes most, and it was just great fun. In fact, more fun putting these two together than it was the main event build, which I'll show you shortly. As I say, I wanted to put these out there just to highlight that you don't have to be a really experienced builder to have fun with Mega. That's what it's all about. I may build some huge and wonderful creations, but ultimately I do it for fun. So as long as it's fun, give it a go. Okay, so I've kept you long enough, you've been very patient, so here it is, the main event, the Air Support Spartan. Now I'm going to come out with it straight off the bat and say I think this has to be my favourite Mega Transformed creation so far, and I think it's because it looks so legitimately like a viable option as a Halo Transformer or even a variation of Halo armour that they could use for orbital insertion. I know they like to just jump out the back of Pelicans and crash into the ground, but this would probably be a better option for a softer landing. The backpack with the jets in it could just be discarded once they've landed. I know they wouldn't need the canopy on the front and everything, but I don't know, it just makes me feel like this is a viable option for a Transformer Halo crossover action figure. I know for one, I would love to have one of these. It definitely makes me want to just play with the thing. It looks like it wants to be played with. Although it's obvious that this Chief looks a lot different to the stock Battle for the Ark Chief, it might not be obvious where I've made all the changes because you're just seeing it on camera. When you actually build this, if I was to create a build tutorial for this, there are a huge amount of modifications to the original Chief. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick walkthrough just pointing out some of the changes. If we start down on the legs, I've completely transformed the feet to incorporate the ski/landing pad style feet of the actual Hornet itself. So those have been completely remodeled to try and reflect the transformation. In regards to the lower legs, they've stayed completely unchanged from the original Battle for the Ark Chief. Upper legs, there's only minor changes here, but these minor changes make a huge difference to the overall look of the leg. I've inserted some small green elongated slopes at the very top of the inner thighs, those green pieces there. I've also put the actual strut bars for the landing legs from the Hornet on the front there, which can pivot just for detail purposes more than anything. And then on the side, these pieces were from the Hornet, and I felt that if I just strapped them straight onto the side of the thighs of the standard leg build, they just completely transformed the look of the thighs and really bulked him up, which I much prefer to the more slender look of the actual original build. As we move on to the arms, the forearms and the upper arms have been bulked up quite considerably. I've added a number of sloped pieces to really tile off the look of the forearms and just generally bulk them up. The hands I left unchanged, and the upper arms I added the grill sections and some black tiling pieces, just again to bulk it up and basically use some of the pieces and add detailing at the same time. As we move across to his chest, this is what really makes it look like the Hornet's converted or transformed into this chief bot. Now, the actual canopy itself does still lift up, as you can see, and when it's lifted up, you can see I have got all the cockpit instrumentation down there around his belly button area, and the actual armor on the front of him has been modified slightly to allow that canopy unit to actually incorporate almost seamlessly into the actual chest plate of the original armor. And that was one of the trickiest parts of this build, incorporating all that so it looked like it worked effortlessly rather than clunky. So I was very pleased with the way that turned out. On his helmet, I made a very small modification by putting some of the building on side pieces into the helmet build so I could attach this piece, which is just like a little tow hook or something off the back of the Hornet. And although it seems a bit pointless, it's supposed to be like a heads up display for him, but we all know he's got all of that in his visor anyway, but I just thought it made it look slightly different, so I put it on there anyway. And it's when we come around to the back where you see most of the modifications. Now, although at a glance this looks like I've just ripped the top of the Hornet or the wing section and the actual thruster sections off and just stuck it to his back, this took a lot of work, a lot of rework. I had to pull all the armor off the back of the original torso, and then I had to strip down a fair amount of that wing section across the top of the Hornet. You'll also notice the gearing has gone, or the switch for the gearing has gone from the top. The gearing is actually still in there, but it no longer operates freely. I basically incorporated some extra pieces in there which give them resistance. So now when you turn them, they're constantly locked. So you can just turn them on the actual pin pieces that stick out of those wing sections, so they don't flop around all over the place, and you can independently point them in whichever direction you want for posing. That way it wouldn't stress me out about them constantly moving in a place I don't want them to be in. You can see you've still got both of the miniguns attached to it, and as we look from above, I've really built that up to block off all of the visible gearing and everything that's on show on the original Hornet build. I just wanted to conceal it a bit more. So that's the figure taken care of, but we've still got a weapon to look at, and this weapon makes no sense whatsoever. I just wanted to use as many parts as I could from the Hornet. I wanted the sensor array from the nose of the Hornet somehow incorporated into it, so that's what I did. And as you can see, it's really bulky, oversized, and just generally outrageous, but I love it. I think it looks absolutely great, and you can see when you compare it to the standard weapon that comes with the Battle for the Ark Chief, it's much more interesting. I could have just used a standard assault rifle, but that looks boring, so yeah, I made this up instead, and I'm really pleased with it. And I think it looks just as good when you sling it over his back as if he's just coming into land and touch down into a hot LZ. And that's just about it for this episode of Mega Transformed. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.